the time we want to debrief together, and then also go through some of the survey results that we've sent out. So with that, Secretary Trujillo.
Thank you, Stephanie, and thank you for opening us up with the prayer and blessing us, and really appreciate everyone joining us and being here today. I hope that you're doing well, and really excited to hear from the team about next steps moving forward. I also want us to, and I'm glad, Stephanie, that we're going to pause and reflect on just the tremendous amount of work that has been done, but also the event. You know, it's been some time, and I hope that the time has given you some space to reflect on such a beautiful event that we were able to come together and support each other in community, to physically take and see all of our contributions in one place. And I know there's a lot of excitement around the work of the task force. And as we head into, for those of you who may not be familiar, we're busy closing out our fiscal year and opening up a new one, and a lot of interim committees will be meeting. So I think we have some opportunities for us to help share the work of the task force, to educate folks continually, and to think about the upcoming session. So I just want to thank all of you for your perseverance, your persistence, and your time and your dedication, most importantly, your heart and how you care for each other. And I want to thank you, Stephanie, always your hard work bringing us together, and our team at the Indian Affairs Department who support us, Sherry and Aurora on the back end, and other people. We know it takes all of us to keep this going, and I'm so thankful to all of you. Thanks, Stephanie.
Thank you, Secretary. So with that, we had our event on May 5th. I just want to open it up to folks who were there, just general reflections on the event, whether you have any, critiques, things that you want to highlight that went well, maybe some things that we can consider moving forward for improvement. So I'm just going to open it up, and feel free to just unmute and jump in.
So while we're waiting for someone to volunteer, Stephanie, I'll go ahead and go. I really want to commend and thank the individuals who led the subcommittees. I know you took time to put together your presentations and to share the highlights of the tremendous amount of work. So thank you for being there. Thank you for being so thoughtful in your presentations. I think that was really amazing work, and sharing that out. So I just want to send some appreciation and acknowledgement. I also want to say that one of the things that I thought about that was really positive is I'm so thankful for the partnerships that you all have built, to hear from, with the support of CVNM, to hear directly from our relatives who are out there who were crying out, needing help. And I think it was really, it meant a lot for us to hold that space and create that space during that time. So just pure acknowledgement for that too.
Hi, Stephanie, this is Denise. Billy, I'm a special agent with the 2nd Judicial District Attorney's Office, and I was in attendance for the rollout, and I really enjoyed the presenters there. They brought a lot of attention and awareness to this, to the MMIP, and I felt that I've connected more with a lot of the individuals there, with other agencies, and it gave me the opportunity to actually meet them, face to face, um, and getting numbers for for contact information. So I really enjoyed the event, and I look forward to working with you all more for the missing persons day. So again, I'd like to congratulate and commend all you guys for all your hard work that you guys do. Again, thank you. And that'll be all.
Thank you, Denise.
Hi, Stephanie, this is Delilah. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and task force members. What I really liked about the event is that, as Secretary Trujillo said, I think it was nice in that it gave everybody, particularly victims' families and survivors' families, a space to, share their stories and frustrations with a larger audience. And I think particularly where I think there was a lot of, media coverage going on. And I also think that, just the lineup of, the people that, the dignitaries that you had available for the event was something that was also very helpful. I think just, looking at it from the family's perspective, it's always nice or pleasant to be able to see the people who are actually doing the work and hearing, the kind of work that they're doing, and not just that it's getting, I can't think of the term, but not just that it's just not being talked about, but there's some action being taken, and that things are moving forward. And again, like Officer Billy just stated, being able to connect with people in person, particularly in light of the pandemic, and create relationships and establish more contact so that resources can be created, I think was huge benefit, not only for us, as the professionals who are putting together the state response plan and doing the rollout, but for the families. I mean, just to be able to, I know that somebody was there from Representative Ledger's office, to be able to talk to those individuals in person and, make that connection and share your story. I think that was just a great and tremendous resource. And, kudos to you guys for being able to invite, all the quote unquote right people and have families make those connections. I think that was really the biggest takeaway for me, to be able to see that happening as a community.
Thank you for that feedback, Delilah. There was some comments in the chat. Chastity agrees with the lineup, and I'll also just read Lily's comment that it was such a beautiful day with sunshine and a good people. It's such a good reminder of bringing sunshine to this issue and people lifting up their stories to raise awareness. So that's beautiful. Thank you, Lily. Any other feedback from the group? Yeah, shout out to the committee chairs. You all did such a great job presenting, as Secretary Trujillo said, and many have echoed.
This is Linda Lopez. I just wanted to say I think the day was beautiful, and to echo all of the comments that have already been made, but a special thank you for the families who were present. The heartfelt, sharing of their stories was important, and I think it brought home right to the plight and the hurt and the need for the work that is being done, and how much more we have yet to do. So, but I wanted to say thank you to everyone who organized, those who were there, and of course, for everyone here on the task force. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Lopez. Anyone else?
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, I just wanted to say that it was a really great event. Happy to see everyone. Bunch of great stories and a lot of great work has gotten us this far. It's a real testament to how much we can accomplish if we all work together, and the fact that legislation, MMIWR days are happening. A lot of movement and progress continues to happen. So really proud of all of you. And just wanted to say that our office will be there to help as often and as needed. Anytime you need us, we'll be there. Just wanted to say keep up the good work and let's keep moving forward together.
Thank you, Derek. And we really appreciate all the support that your office has, all the time and energy that your office has put into our subcommittee meetings and supporting us here at our task force meeting. So thank you for that. All right, well, I think at this time we can, let's see. I'm going to read one more comment for those people who are calling in who might not be able to read the feedback in the comments. So Mesky states, I was able to view the event on social media. It was a beautiful and blessed event. It was well put together. The families were heard that day. Their hearts were refilled with hope in getting justice for their missing or murdered loved ones. Thank you to all that made that day happen. You brought hope back into many hearts and also established a collaboration with families and resources. So thank you, Mesky, for that. If there's no further comments on the event, the department, we kind of had our internal kind of debrief after the event and highlighted a few areas that we acknowledged that we, areas that we were happy about. We were really happy again with the attendance. We thought that the state response plan and the way it was printed, it looks really nice, and we're really proud of just the way that came together. We're happy that we had a lot of giveaways, and I think we went through all of that. So we're really happy that we were able to send people off with some stickers and reports and water bottles, etc. And we were also extremely grateful for the families. I think a lot of our self-critique also comes in this area that in future events, we should have kind of a space for families to have some quiet space to where they can, if they need to, after providing testimony, can collect their thoughts, have some space, and maybe provide some additional support services. We did feel that that was lacking a bit, and at future events, we will work to improve in that area. I think that was the biggest area where we felt that there could have been some improvement on our part in terms of organizing. But we were happy and grateful to the coalition, our partners, for organizing that part of the agenda, as well as including youth voices. We felt that was really important, and we were glad that we could hear from our youth during the event. So I also just want to thank the coalition, thank the Attorney General's office, DA Torres, and Mayor Keller and City of Albuquerque for providing the lunch again. It was a collective effort, and it was really neat to see all of our organizations working together to put this event on. So with that, I just wanted to provide one update that we are reprinting the state response plan. Some folks have reached out. There were a few typos throughout the response plan, or maybe just some things that we, tribal affiliation that may have been missing. If if you have edits, please let us know as soon as possible. It's not too late to get some of those areas fixed within the state response plan, but we will be getting that reprinted and we'll probably have our revised draft very soon. So if there's anything that you've caught, please reach out as soon as possible. Secretary or anyone else from IAD team, is there anything else we wanted to address at this part of the agenda? Or are we ready to move on?
I don't have anything further. I think it's really thank you everybody for sharing your feedback, thoughtful feedback. And no, I don't have anything, Stephanie. I think we're good to move on in our agenda.
Great. All right. Well, with that, Aurora, would you mind pulling up the survey responses PowerPoint? And so folks received a request last week to fill out a survey for the task force. We'll be going through those survey results now. And after that, we will have a discussion regarding the results. So if you can just hold your feedback, let's try to get through the survey responses, and then we'll have some time to talk through the responses after. But the purpose of the survey, just to give some folks context, we this whole time have been operating under an executive order that our governor signed in 2021. And so the objective under the executive order was to develop and draft a state response plan. So, you know, we did that, we had our release, and it was a successful event. And so now, you know, I think we are at a point where we're trying to regroup and figure out, how do we organize our work now? Where should we focus? We certainly feel that our work isn't complete, that there's still a lot of work to do. And I think we're just trying to figure out, with all of the work that we have that is required, that we have obligated ourselves to do, that we've already committed to, and then also these new initiatives that are coming up, and of course, the implementation of the response plan itself. So I think the purpose of the surveys was to gauge where people are at, and to also start thinking about strategies for getting this work completed. So we have all of these goals, and how are we going to get there, and what's the best way to do that? So the responses we're going through today, you know, we'll have some time to talk through it. Geneva put the survey results in the chat. So if you wanted to kind of browse through this on your own, you're welcome to. But I'm just going to jump right in. Aurora, would you mind going to the next slide? All right, so to the left, these are the areas of required work. So just to refresh everyone's memory, we have the planning for the Missing in New Mexico event. We also need to assist the Attorney General's office to implement Senate Bill 12. The other thing that we will need to do pretty soon is to start presenting our work to the legislative committees during their interim committee hearings. And we don't have a schedule for that yet, but it will be coming out really soon. We have the continuation of our University of Nebraska at Omaha partnership. And so, you know, the partnership there, of course, is to continue data collection in the state of New Mexico. And where we're at right now is that the proposal was submitted to the National Institute of Justice, and we're hoping that we will be selected for funding. So depending on, you know, how that goes, that'll be another area of work that we will need to be carrying out this fall. Present the task force work to tribal leaders across the state, and then oversee the MOU between the task force and the Second Judicial District Attorney's Office. So based on the first question, we did ask folks which of the required activities would they like to be involved with. So there's a lot of interest in 1A, 1B, and 1E. So presenting to tribal leaders, assisting with the Attorney General's office, and then the Missing in New Mexico event planning. Next slide, please. And so the priority areas, we asked folks to prioritize the number one area that they felt that they had the strongest interest in first. So the top three were, like I just mentioned, missing a New Mexico event, assisting with the AG, and presenting before the legislative interim committees. But we also had a lot of interest and desire to update tribal leaders across the state. Next slide. So for the next several slides, we're going to run through these really quickly, but we just wanted to gauge from folks what's the best mechanism for moving the work forward. So right now, just to kind of lay it out for everybody, we have our 3 subcommittee meetings that meet every month, and we also have our monthly task force meetings. So for our members, that's 2 meetings a month that you're trying to participate in. We've thrown out the idea of establishing a working group for some of these initiatives, or just assigning this task to one of our existing subcommittee meetings, because I think the last thing we want to do is to have potentially 5 or 6 different meetings every single month. I think it just causes more hardship on you, but is also really hard for our staff to keep up with that planning and coordination that's required. So for this first one, there was a large consensus to establish a working group with 2 representatives from each subcommittee. Next slide. For implementing Senate Bill 12 to establish an MMIWR specialist position, the consensus was a full planning meeting with our entire task force. Next slide. To present before the legislative interim committees, this one was a little interesting. There was a tie between establishing a new working group and just assigning this body of work to the data subcommittee to work on. So, just flagging for our chairs as well. If you can keep this in mind, we can, have some discussion on this in a few minutes. Next slide. The University of Nebraska Omaha partnership, there was a recommendation for a working group, and the second recommendation was just having one representative lead this area of work and provide updates to the group. Next slide. For 1E, presenting updates to tribal leaders. Again, this was another recommendation for a working group. And as you can see, the option B is kind of split between having the community impact subcommittee lead this, having one planning session, or assigning to the community impact. Next slide. And then overseeing the MOU between IAD and the Second Judicial. The consensus here, I think the majority of results elected to have this assigned to the data subcommittee. And so these are the following partnerships, opportunities and strategies that we're not necessarily required to do, but these are either opportunities that have been presented to us, things that we've talked about that kind of keep coming up that we're trying to, we believe as staff that we want to address. So these were the top 4 that we've identified just based on requests that we've received or discussions that we've had collectively. So 2A is developing community education presentations. And the presentations would be specifically for our Missing in New Mexico event, and also for an event that we might be supporting FBI with in September. So that's community education is one, legislation and policy development for the 2023 60-day legislative session, coordinating community education events, and then 2D is supporting families who bring requests to us to assist them with a missing relative. And so as you see here, there was a lot of support for community education events as well as supporting families. Next slide. And this is how it was prioritized. Community education was among the higher priorities, but as well as supporting families with requests that come in. Next slide. And again, with the strategies for how do we carry this out, for the community education, this was again another recommendation for a working group. For legislative and policy development, again, a recommendation for a working group. And then the other plan B was to schedule a planning session with our whole task force. Coordinating community events. This was assigned to the Community Impact Subcommittee. Alternatively, establishing another working group. For 2D, again, this is supporting families with, to assist families with missing relatives. Establishing a working group was the majority here. And so we also asked, are there other areas that aren't listed that there's interest in participating? And so there is interest in assisting with more youth-centered spaces, education for children, where to go, who to call, and creating a subcommittee that can begin working with families who have lost their loved ones to murder or unnatural deaths. I think that might be a little separate than what we were envisioning, so we included that feedback. Next slide, please. And here I'll turn it over to Geneva to walk us through the last handful of slides.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us this task force meeting, and I appreciate all your good thoughts on the state response plan event, and appreciate all your assistance in helping with the plan. So I'd like to help finish up the PowerPoint here with Stephanie. And one of the other question was, which of the following organizations would you like to see the task force partner in the future? Which was the Coalition to Stop Violence, and also the Missing, Murdered, and Dead Relatives and First Nations were some of the top responses for partnership. And then also looks like the Public Action Alliance is another one. So these are some of the areas that we can assist and help do a partnership with them as well. So the next slide, please. The other thing is we wanted to, we asked about, based on your selection from the partnership that we would like to grow with them, is to, we put this into a thematic that kept coming up, was communication and partnership. So I'm not going to read all of them, but we also sent you the link for the PowerPoint. And for example, communication is better communication on tribal needs, what the organizations are doing in their communities, laws, and investigation involving missing persons. So the other one is partnership, and one of them is, I would like to see joint meetings and with designated groups mentioned in the items 4A above. So those are some of the things that we'd like to continue a partnership with the grassroots organization. Next slide, please. And the other one is, based on your selection above, how would you like to see these partnership grow? Again, we put this into a lot of great answers, great responses. One of the other one is collaboration, education awareness, and training. Collaboration is, I'm not going to read all of them, but one of them was we can collaborate on goals that we are working on at that point. The other one is education awareness, is to support the work being done by task force and to educate the public and assist where needed. And lastly is the training, having them be supported to lead community education events and development trainings. So The other one is for what part of the meeting would you like to see improvement on? A lot of great responses. We put them into thematic content. Content is one of the things that we are looking at is tribal law enforcement agencies handling or dealing with missing person, as well as state, city, and county law enforcement agencies. The other one is planning logistically, which is specific action items, and then accountability and follow up on certain tasks, assignments. So I think we're gonna also need some, I think Stephanie mentioned earlier is that we'll be needing some assistance with leadership roles. And we're gonna hopefully move this into a discussion. That's why I'm sorry I'm going through this quickly so we can have some time to discuss some of these areas. So next slide, please. The other one is what part of the meeting would you like to see improvement? So we just put some of the areas in miscellaneous. One of the things that captured, just wanted to give a feedback is possibly having written documentation and recorded meetings. We just want to let you know that if you're missing a meeting, and you can always email us because we record the meetings and we can forward the meeting minutes or meeting recordings to you. And then also scheduling is another one. So we're continuing to improve the presentation as well. The other one is, oh, next slide, please. So the last one is just doing what part of the meetings do you find the most valuable, which was a lot of feedback. It was great to read through this, and we just kind of put this all into a format where we can all see what the most valuable is, getting updates and sharing some information, and also providing and collaborating with each other and networking. And so the other one is providing, oh, sorry, can you go ahead and go to the next slide? The most valuable takeaways from the meetings is updates, data, and then also sharing information. And then also one of the other one was opening up the meeting with a prayer and ending the meeting with a prayer. So those are some of our takeaways from our presentations. And we just, this is just some of the keywords that stood out, and just wanted to provide those to you, and also have the opportunity to have some discussion. And again, you're more than welcome to review some of these responses and provide some feedback. We really appreciate it. And also with the leadership that has more than at least 60%, we'd really like to see if you have any time to probably put your name in the chat, or some roles that you would like to fulfill. Then you can just put that in the chat to help us out. And then the other one is we just wanted to make sure that your feedback is being shared out. If you want to spend more time on this responses in your subcommittee as well. So just wanted to bring that attention to you. And then also, I don't have anything else. That's all we have for our survey. So thank you so much for providing that input.
Thank you, Geneva. And yes, thank you everyone who was able to respond to the survey. Really for us, it was a process of just collecting information so that we have kind of a sense of where everyone is at right now. As Geneva said, there was also a question on the survey regarding your continued participation on the task force, and if you would like to continue, because we do want to acknowledge that the executive order and your initial commitment was really just for that 1 year up until the development of the state response plan. And I think as a group, we've all elected to continue working towards some of these initiatives that have already started in motion. And so if you're at a point where you can no longer participate, or different commitments, issues have come up, please just let us know, and we can work with you to get a replacement for that position, just so that we have the continued level of participation that we need to keep the work going. So with that, I want to introduce Antoinette. She is really I don't know how to describe you, Antoinette. You're like an angel who is always here to support us and help us, I think, be our best in the positions that we carry. And she's going to help us facilitate some of the discussion today. And I think just help hear from all of you about where you're at, if there's any initial thoughts or reflections that you have after seeing the survey results.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Antoinette Theus Humble. I am a Chicana mestiza from the North Valley in Albuquerque, and I'm lucky enough to be sitting in my parents' house today and joining you at this meeting. I want to thank and recognize the chair and all the coalition members who have done such amazing work. By the way, thank you, Stephanie, for that introduction. And I went to Catholic school for a short time, and I'm sure there are nuns whose necks are hurting right now because they can't imagine the word angel would ever be mentioned in the same sentence as my name. But I am trying to be helpful. So, one of the things that I noticed when I was looking at the survey response is just how much work has happened since the executive order. And I just want to recognize that from folks that are working in law enforcement and the community side, inward facing and outward facing work, I know that work was already happening before the executive order, and I just want to share appreciation and just tell you that I hold you all in my best prayers for the work that you're doing in the space that you're holding for our relatives and families who have lost loved ones. So thank you for that. So therefore, I'm always offering, Stephanie, any support I can to the coalition, and that offer stands to any of you on the coalition. I just wanted to take a moment to ask if you're comfortable, you can do it either in the chat or you can go off mic. So on chat or off mic, just to give a chance to say, was there any data in the survey, and although we went over it quickly, right, that surprised you or stood out? So let's just give a second for anyone to share something that really stood out to them as we went through that.
Hi, Antoinette. I'm Chastity Sandoval. I
Hi,
am
Chastity.
the co-chair for the data subcommittee here on the
Thank you.
task force.
Yes.
One thing that really stood out to me, I guess, was the whole legislation part. The high votes for that was for the data subcommittee to be the presenter of that.
Mm-hmm. How do you feel about that?
It's scary. Well, to think about it, we have put in a lot of work, and my group is such an amazing group. I just feel like we are such a powerful group, but I think that should be something that for the whole entire task force to work together on and to present that, if not at least one representative from each of the subcommittee group. So that's just my personal thoughts on it. So yeah. I don't know if anybody else from my subcommittee would like to speak on that as well.
Thank you, Chastity, and thank you for the work you've done in the data subcommittee. I think you're actually highlighting exactly probably why maybe some people tapped that group is because you are a powerful group and probably have had some good results. So you're a victim of your own success, some might say. But yeah, I'd love to hear from other committee members in the data subcommittee. What do you think about that? You can put it into the chat or speak it into the mic. And I don't have the list of the subcommittee members, or else I'd be picking on folks.
They can put their names in chat.
Yeah.
I see Angelica here, Regina, Sergeant Andrea Sosi. Sorry, I'm just browsing through.
Yeah.
And I might offer as well that it was actually, for that one, it was a tie. So it was either designating one representative to lead or assigning it to the data subcommittee. And so, or establishing a working group or designating a representative to lead. And so I think, that's one thing that we're struggling with is the creation of more working groups and more meetings versus assigning the work that existing work to certain groups and certain subcommittees.
Yeah, so just another invitation. I'm sorry, who? I don't want to
This is
interrupt you.
Delilah.
Thank you, Delilah.
So I'm looking at the pie chart, and I see the tie, I guess, between the two that Stephanie just had pointed out. Would it be possible to assign it to the data subcommittee, but then open it up to if other members of other subcommittees would like to participate or do some of the work that this subcommittee is doing, at least have that invitation available to them so that at least we're not creating another separate working group for this particular issue, but just opening it up so that if people from other subcommittees want to come in and of course with the blessing from the data subcommittee, if other subcommittee members want to come in and help them out or share their perspective while they're trying to hammer down some of what our commitment should be for this legislative session, I think that would be a good bridge.
Thank you, Delilah. And I see some comments coming in the chat. Thanks, you all. I know many of us are dealing with multiple commitments. So thank you for chiming in. Let's see. Linda said, in response to the data subcommittee, how great it is for our department to be mentioned in this. I think that this would be such an amazing opportunity for us as a group. Sorry, I'm in another meeting and I would have spoke up. Totally understand. Thanks for chiming in. Beata, I think the work is moving forward very well from the state requests for how the work began, and yet now I see a desire and need for it to be more community-led. I see two tracks emerging to keep the momentum on state office and events, and then the community education, awareness, and support. Thanks for that noticing. And that's, I think, Beata, if I'm correct, you're noticing across the presentation itself. You're seeing that. What stood out is I think there is good more collaborations with our sister task forces such as CSVANW and MMDD. Again, reading these for folks who might not be able to see the screen right now. And then Althea said, good afternoon, my first meeting, and I agree with partnering with CSVANW. They would be an excellent hub for the Native tribes and Pueblos within the Southwest. Thanks for jumping in, everybody. And I know some of us are multitasking, so this is obviously not your last chance to weigh in on this, but wanted to just get a sense of what the temperature is, right, in the group. I reviewed the results from the survey, and I have the benefit of being like, who am I, right? I just kind of like walked into the meeting. And sometimes it's helpful because I have less attachment to, some of the content, right? And what y'all have been through. And I will say that I have a mashup kind of some of the feedback you already all have given around, I see as well some paths that are diverging, that are kind of like inward focused. How do we build the sustainability of the task force, right? And the kind of the infrastructure of it. And then how do we continue to be in community, doing education with tribal leaders, community, and carrying stories back and forth. So I do see there's like an inward facing growth period and an outward facing desire in all the feedback. And, you know, usually you'll see that happen with groups 5 years down the line, that this is already happening a year in. Is just, it's beautiful, but it is a sign of the fact that the work is so important. There's so much passion, and there's an opportunity to streamline it and perhaps organize it in a different way now that we know what buckets of work are really emerging as priorities for you as the task force. So I was talking to Stephanie a little bit before the meeting about how there might be an opportunity to use one of the old phrases, right, that comes to mind, that my grandpa would say in, you know, in Spanish in a different way, but like it translates probably most easily to English in the idea of form follows function. So for what, how has the coalition grown now? And given the current priorities that you all identified in the survey, how would we reorganize ourselves to align towards those specific goals? And I would encourage everyone to just hold that question lightly, because this could be just for the next 6 months. It could be for a year. You know, as much as we've seen the world change in the last couple of years, we know, right, that agility is critical for any group. So I'm wondering, you know, how might do we keep the status quo, right, as an option? Do we add more subcommittees or workforce or work committees, which I've heard pretty consistently, more doesn't sound better? And or is there an opportunity to realign or recommit the subcommittees to align with the current priorities, right? And I see, you know, folks chiming in on the chat, like some folks would love to join a subcommittee. So maybe it's a matter of realigning what the goal of the subcommittee is, or kind of re-energizing it and bringing in more membership. So there's some ideas here about how we might reorganize ourselves around the work, right? The work's not changing, but there might be more aligned ways to get it done. So I'm going to pause there and definitely ask for feedback about what I just said. And then meanwhile, I'm going to check in here on the chat. So for example, Jacqueline chimed in, I would love to join a subcommittee that has an opening. I finished my chemo and radiation. Oh my gosh, special prayers and congratulations, Jacqueline, for your continued healing journey. Thank you for sharing that with us. So if someone could reach out to Jacqueline, she's happy to jump in. Whew. So many prayers and admiration for you, Jacqueline. Reyes says, as the program director with Pueblo Action Alliance, thank you to everyone who also selected our organization to partner with in the future. I'm open to those conversations and how to move forward collectively, especially in community education and youth-centered space. Laris, I hope I'm saying your name correctly, would also like to be added to the email list. She's the Northwestern Field Representative and liaison for Representative Ledger Fernandez, and has the attached email as well. So having read those, I just want to open it up again. What are people's, like, we're not deciding, this isn't a deciding moment, right? But what's your inclination about, do we establish more work groups? Do we add more subcommittees, or do we realign the purpose of the standing subcommittees? What's coming to mind right now?
This is Delilah again. I would vote for the latter. I mean, I think that to me, that would make more sense to sort of readjust so that we're more responsive and I guess have a clearer perspective of what we're going to be doing moving forward. Plus, I don't think it would put us in a position where we would necessarily have to recreate the wheel. You know, like Beata said, we have some momentum behind us now and how we've been moving forward and the work that we've done. And I think, you know, to be able to take advantage of that, it would just make more sense to sort of readjust or realign the standing committees with the focus on, you know, instead of now shifting from developing the state response plan, now moving forward into, okay, how are we going to implement this, and what steps do we need to take to make sure that as a task force, we're doing that successfully.
Thanks, Delilah. I appreciate your your thoughts and feedback on that. Other impressions or thoughts on this? Pamela Herndon's in the house. Nice to hear from you in the chat. I agree with Delilah in realigning the purpose of the standing subcommittees.
Hi, this is Delegate Cardi. May I ask a question?
Thank you, Delegate. Yes, please.
So in terms of the where we're at now with the subcommittee, and could you remind me what does the language say in terms of the purpose and the scope of the task force? Like, what is the length of time? And then I just need to understand, are we, when we talk to the legislative committees, are we asking for either like a reauthorization, or is this, help me just understand where the subcommittee or where the task force will be under. Is it under now? I'm just trying to understand where we're at in terms of the organization and what the legislation states, and how much support Indian Affairs Department can continue to provide the task force. Thank you.
Incredibly important question. Thank you for grounding us in that. And I'm going to hand it over to Stephanie.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Delegate Crotty. So right now we're operating under Executive Order 2021-13, I believe. And the governor signed that May 5th of 2021. And the objective for the task force under that executive order was to draft a state response plan. And the organization structure was that we would develop subcommittees to accomplish that goal. So now we're kind of on the opposite end of that, where I think we can still continue to operate because the department has received a budget for the MMIWR work. And we've actually received an increase this past legislative session. So we have a larger budget to work with. And that's part of the reason why we asked about the partnerships. And so, just letting everyone know that part of the budget can be used to support collaboration with different grassroots organizations and other initiatives that we want to move forward. So to answer your question, we are on the other end of the state response plan release, but based on, I think, the feedback that we've received from the committee, that there's a lot of work yet to be done, and the department still has an ongoing budget to continue this work. And so I think that gives us the authority to continue meeting and operating. But I also think we have a little bit of flexibility if we want to kind of reorganize a little bit. And one last thing I wanted to say is, even if we don't reorganize every single subcommittee, maybe if there's kind of a breaking up of one or two, so less meetings, maybe that's just another option.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Shadija. Yeah, I would support in moving forward. I know the term breaking up seems a bit harsh, but maybe just reimagining, or coming back together, seeing what we were able to do, and how we want to move forward. I think that's a great plan, and I support that. I think in terms of capacity, we might, a suggestion would be just to see if everyone on the task force still can continue with the capacity. And it's great that other partners are coming on board and supporting with their efforts. So thank you for the call. That's my recommendation.
Thank you, Delegate Crotty. That was an incredibly important question, and I should have started there. So thank you so much. And thank you, Geneva, for linking the order into the chat. So if folks need to have an easy way to review what Stephanie just reviewed with us, that's very helpful. And yes, thank you, Stephanie. I love that finer point of like, it's maybe some committees, for example, the data subcommittees that's getting a lot of kudos. You know, we don't want to mess with a good thing, if you will. And so, you know, maybe there's nothing to be done there, or maybe there is. There's a way to again reorganize to meet the priorities that you all see as possibilities. There is a question in the chat, and I don't want to skip it. And so, Stephanie, I wanted to ask you, Kathy has a question about family members and reaching out. And I just want to make sure if that's something we can answer now or if we should follow that up.
No, so to Kathy's question regarding, you know, she's noticed a lot of families reaching out to the media for help. Do we have a subcommittee that handles those requests? And she believes that we should have a set group of individuals that can act in the capacity of case manager to be assigned specific cases in order to work directly with the families in determining the status of their case. Have we discussed setting up a clearinghouse similar to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children? So to answer your question, Kathy, the way we are handling those requests now, they come to the Indian Affairs Department directly. And we do our best to support the families. And, you know, we know, I think, just based on the work that we're doing, we're kind of like the nexus for all these different organizations that we've been working with. So we kind of know, like, Second Judicial will handle any case that kind of touches or has a link to Albuquerque or Bernalillo County. And then, you know, the AG's office can handle a case that is throughout the state. The Missing and Murdered Unit can take a case that occurred on tribal reservation or Indian country. So, you know, I think we have that, we can see that, but also I think in our internal discussions, we're starting to realize that we might not be the best group to be doing that, especially lately, given the staffing challenges that we've had. And also, you know, there was an oversight that happened a few weeks ago. We're very concerned as well about some liability issues. And, you know, and even I think as our full task force, that's something that we should be thinking about is liability and how do we support families, but also, you know, ensure that we're not creating, you know, potential lawsuit or anything like that if something goes wrong. And I, you know, I hate to put it that way, but I think just in my mind, these are practical considerations and things that we want to be thoughtful about and intentional. And so, you know, I guess right now I don't have a good answer, but just giving you a little bit of context.
Stephanie, and this is Delilah, Madam Chair, members of the task force. I mean, I agree with what Stephanie is saying, but I also think from the perspective as a task force member, I think not only do we want to be worried about, you know, liability issues and stuff like that, but we also want to be very, I guess, responsible in how we're handling these things and these requests. And we don't want to let our inexperience in maybe handling them, you know, I know that we want to help, but I don't think that we want to add to any more trouble that this family has already had with our inexperience. And I think that, you know, a subcommittee sounds good, but at the same time, I do also think that, you know, partnering with some of these other organizations like the Coalition or Pueblo Action Alliance or organizations that are better at sort of, you know, handling these kinds of requests and providing those kinds of resources or case management things that families may need would be in a better position to do that. Just because they already have sort of the access to those resources and the information that the families may need.
Thank you so much for that reflection. And again, I think it is a sign, it's a good sign and the opportunity to really start to sort the needs of the community that the coalition has identified, and then to be very deliberate about what the coalition can do that no one else can do, And if someone else can do it and do it better, like there's a way to align the work in a better way, right? The coalition can't be all things, but it certainly can be a clearinghouse, if you will, to figure out, okay, this is a community need. Where might that best fit? So I really appreciate that conversation about, are there other organizations that are better prepared and would do community better service? So I think that's a conversation that should probably be taken up or continued, right, to figure out what that would look like. So we're a little over time for this particular discussion. Check the, Tracy, thank you for chiming in. Tracy said realignment would be good. I would like to suggest that we take a few people from each committee to streamline the learning curve from community data systems. That way we can have continuity from the original task force suggestions and bring well-rounded information to the new groups. Oh my gosh, genius. Yes, let's not lose the knowledge that we've been collecting, right? Let's build on it. Beata, a lot of people, I think a lot of support from families can come from when we do the Missing in New Mexico Day, as far as creating a resource guide for families and using that event as a template for families. Linda chiming in, I agree with Delilah. I would think that each committee should have their own task list with required follow-ups. What would be our focus and action items? And then Regina chiming in from the Department of Public Safety. The New Mexico Department of Public Safety Missing Persons Clearinghouse is statutorily tasked with serving the similar purpose that NCMEC serves. If there are ideas and growth opportunities for MPCH, we want to be open to those ideas. That is great. This is the reason for the coalition, right? Here it is, living and breathing in service. So Reyes chiming in, full strategic planning with a review of where each committee was highlighted in the survey, then create timelines and action plans to move forward. So I'm not hearing like, let's just keep it the way it is, or let's add more subcommittees, which I'm so relieved, because more typically isn't better, it's just more. So maybe a realignment is in order, and I'm happy to serve the coalition in any way that I can. And Stephanie, however you see fit as a partner with the Department of Indian Affairs, if I can be of any assistance in that, I'm happy to do that. But it does feel like a really good opportunity to review, realign. As was said, let's keep integrated some people that are carrying knowledge, over time, so that we can really build on the work that we've already done and set some new goals and achieve them. This group is a group of doers, and I want to support that in any way that I can. Just another quick note from Tracy, Medicine Wheel Ride uses an application for help and quickly goes to vote to help families. So again, there's another resource that the committee might want to take, or the coalition might want to take note of. I'm going to step away for now, but I want to thank you all for having me at this meeting. And again, I just feel like it's such a privilege to sit along the IAD team. I find their work inspiring. They manage to move mountains. I don't know how they do it, but I know how committed they are to this coalition, and I appreciate all your work. If I can be of service, please be in touch.
Thank you, Antoinette. We really appreciate your help with this discussion today. It is kind of I think it's sensitive for all of us, because as Antoinette said, we all care for this work so much. And so appreciate your help with this important discussion, Antoinette. Just know, everyone, that it's a continued discussion, and we want to provide maybe the subcommittees another opportunity to meet next month and talk through some of the feedback. Maybe come back in July with some ideas, and we could continue to take these different recommendations and try to map out a few different options for what that could look like. So thank you, everyone, for your feedback and your engagement in the discussion. We have a lot of presenters today, so I think I'm gonna kind of pivot over to the Department of Public Safety. And I think also hearing from our partners on what they're doing and where they're at will help us kind of think about our reorganization and what that could look like. So I'm going to turn it over now to Regina Chacon, who's going to provide some updates from the Department of Public Safety, and also some updates about the coordination and planning for the Missing in New Mexico event.
Hi, everyone. Okay, so I think the first thing that we'll talk about is the group and establishing the group. And I think we've decided that the working group with representatives from each subcommittee is probably going to be the correct avenue for this event. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, so one thought we had, at least for the Missing in New Mexico event planning, is to develop a subcommittee, and this is in line with the survey results. Nominate one person from each subcommittee to support the planning of the Missing in New Mexico event. And we want to get going on this quickly because the event is tentatively scheduled for October, and we need to get moving on the planning and coordination for that event. And so the immediate task for our subcommittee chairs for July will be to nominate at least 2 people from your subcommittee, or your subcommittees as a whole can nominate 2 people to represent them on the working group for the Missing in New Mexico event.
So, okay, so if we could get started on that pretty quickly. It seems like a long way off, but when you're planning an event where you're coordinating this many resources and participants, I think it's just a lot of the faster we can start getting the information out and start establishing, a participant list, it just the better. So Stephanie mentioned that we want to have the first meeting in July because of the short. I know earlier we all were talking about less meetings is better, but because this is a short time span and it's the first event, I'd like to have 2 meetings a month on it. And I'm also requesting from the task force. I don't really know. I know we don't use Robert's Rule of Order or anything, but what the procedures would be. I'd like to add a couple of my staff to these working groups, just because they're the ones that are going to be helping from the department, and also to involve our community outreach, which is Captain Velasquez, and then also our representatives, which is Major Aguirre and Captain Milligan. So if that's okay with everybody, just because the event is, here. Then I think that one of the main things I want to really try and get to is establishing an event space. Establishing an event space is really going to tell us how many participants, how we can establish this. Is this going to be a track type of conference, or is it really just going to be a gathering of all of the resources and families and law enforcement to have these open discussions? Are we going to have speakers? Are we going to allow dignitary speakers, those type of things, I think. But the event space is really what we need to establish first, in my thinking. And then I don't know if we mentioned it, but oh yeah, Stephanie mentioned that we did want to have it in October. And so I think that's a great time to have it. I'm open to any time in October. I don't know if anybody has a specific date in mind or if we wanted to do it on a weekend or a weekday. But again, I think the event space is going to dictate a lot of that as well. Our bureau had some extra money just laying around, government money. We didn't. We had another project going on where we created some of our logos for our bureau, because we have multiple out-facing units, and so we were trying to market those other areas. But in doing that, we also added in the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Relatives and Missing Persons Event Day. And so I sent Stephanie the logo that we all agreed on. We had a few meetings, and this is what we came up with. So I hope everybody loves it. It was very thoughtful. We had a lot a very open discussion. And so I appreciate that. But so I don't know if you want to show it, Stephanie, or just you can send it out later. You know, we can do whatever, but we did create a logo for the missing persons event. We wanted it to make sure that yes, it was missing persons, but it was important to the department, important to for me to make sure that the community knew that it came from the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Relatives Task Force. It was your hard work, it was your dream, it was your goal, and so we wanted to make sure that was represented. So and so we did have we have some with the MMIWR and then some without. So we added a little bit of both, but yeah, so we did that. So if we're not able to show it, that's fine. We'll send it out just so you guys can all have it. We'll be creating part of what we'll be doing at the beginning of July is in government world, we have to write what's called a white paper, and we have to request to use money outside of the budgetary restrictions. So I'll be asking for some funds and some money through our general fund and to be able, and through our revenue, to be able to use some money for this event. So we'll be purchasing things like table coverings, you know, little things that people don't really think of, extra tables, extra chairs, tents, not tents, but you know, the coverings, little things like that we're going to need extra, you know. So if we'll be talking about that in July as well, on things that we can start purchasing now, and what we can start doing and start getting quotes for, you know, some rentals and things like that. And that's really all I have for right now on the missing persons event. But the very last thing that I'd like to share with everybody is that the tribal affiliation field is added in NCIC. It was tested and it is completed. And so we've been getting some really good feedback from law enforcement and our dispatchers. And everybody's really excited. They have lots of questions. We did give some ideas or tips for law enforcement on things that you can ask, things that you're looking for. So again, we're open to what other ideas that anybody may have on how to train law enforcement to utilize this field in the best way that they can. In 3 months, so the way that I usually work on data systems, when we implement something new, is that in 3 months, I'll pull a data sample. Then we'll start from that data sample, who used it the most, you know, what are we looking for? And then we'll start reaching out to law enforcement and see what questions they have and what are the issues. And if we see law enforcement agencies that have a lot of NA, which is non-applicable, then we're probably going to reach out and say, okay, you know, why was this? What were you asking? What are your officers asking? And we're also implementing it into all of our CERT trainings for New Mexico State Police, for the LEA, for dispatchers, for our tax for the dispatchers. And so we're starting to implement it in all of our educational pieces for them as well. Yeah, so that's really all I have. Does anybody have anything else to add or to ask?
No questions from me. I was just gonna flag for Aurora, are you able to pull up the logos that I sent you earlier?
Yes, let me do that now.
Thank you. Yeah, there's a lot of suspense around the logo. I just saw that note in the chat.
Can you see that okay?
Yeah, we can. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Do you want me to pull them all up, or how would you like me to?
I want to scroll through each of them, and then we can yeah, just show folks.
Okay.
Awesome. They're beautiful.
Right. Are there any other questions for Regina at this time? Or feedback on the logos?
Hi, this is Reyes with PAA. I had just a clarifying question because you said you wanted to assign some people to be a part of the working group for that, right? So is that, was it decided that we would decide who that person would be amongst the committees, or we would just kind of like volunteer ourselves?
Yeah, Reyes, thank you for the clarifying question. I know I kind of just ran through that quickly, but the decision was, so for next month, for July, we will continue having our subcommittee meetings, just so we can give the group a time to reconnect and kind of digest some of the survey results and talk through whether they want to be one of those committees that kind of, I think, just to talk through the survey responses. And I think as staff will try to provide some discussion questions to help lead to help us reorganize as well. But at that time, during the July subcommittee meetings, we do want to start this working group as soon as possible. And so we will ask the chairs and the subcommittees to nominate 2 people to represent their committee on the working group. So you did hear me correctly. I just wanted to provide a little bit more context.
Can I ask a question as well? Just to, since we're on that subject, if people are willing from this data subcommittee to, if we have more than 2 people, is that okay?
Yeah, I mean, I think I want to defer also to Regina, because I think DPS will really be taking the lead on those meetings. And I think we want to be inclusive, but we also want it to be workable. And so I think that's kind of the back and forth that we were playing with when we were trying to figure out what that might look like. But Regina.
Yeah, and I think from the data sub, because that's my, those are my peeps, right? That's my subcommittee. But I guess, so I would say, like, I don't count as your volunteer. So, if you wanted to have a couple of more from other than me, or, that, I think that would be fine. And Stephanie's right. We really want to keep it small and workable, but with the diversity and the expansive knowledge that we can. So, we're looking for just from every perspective that we can. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Regina. Mm-hmm. And one more thing. I'm sorry. So I guess we should take into factor, like, will any of these meetings, the planning meetings, be in person? What's the travel like? What, the time frame? We got 3 months, maybe a little less than 3 months to prepare for this stay. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be a lot of traveling time, and probably even just personal time to put forward into this. So I just want everybody to take that into consideration if you want to be a part of that.
Yeah. And I think there may be, you're absolutely right, Chastity. There may be times where we do, we are going to do virtual to do kind of have like quick meetings or things that we need to update. But there are times where we're going to want to meet in person because we're going to want to look at things. We're going to want to lay things out. I'm a big whiteboard girl, so I like to have like, planning meetings where there's lines and circles and, and that type of stuff. So, but, I do want people to understand that this is for the next 3 months, it is intensive. It's an intensive dedication to this event. And like I said earlier, it's the first event. So, a lot of work is going to go into the first. It's exciting because our creativity and all of our ideas and the ideas that have been brewing up since it was presented to us is coming up, but it's also going to be a lot of work to implement those and creative minds on how we can get it cheaper on a budget, kind of. So thank you for adding that. I appreciate that.
Any final questions for Regina before we move on to our next presenter?
Regina, where are you located?
I'm in Santa Fe.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Well, thank you, Regina, for the updates, for all of your work on the Missing in New Mexico event and keeping, just certain parts on track. I know it's a lot of work and in addition to everything else you're already doing. But there was one question in the chat. Always ask for donations within our communities to support this event. I know that's something that we talked about internally because one of the barriers that family members and advocates have raised is just the travel cost on families. And so I think that's another thing that this working group will need to talk about is fundraising and ensuring that we find creative ways to help families make it to the event with travel and lodging, etc. So just one more consideration. All right, well, with that, we're actually on time in our agenda. I think this is the first time ever. It's amazing. But I'm going to turn it over to, I don't know if Ryan Summers is here or Dawn with the FBI, but I will turn it over to you at this time. I see you, there you are.
All right, thanks, Stephanie. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Thanks again for allowing me a few minutes to talk about kind of an update from the FBI's point of view here of what we're kind of working on. Before I get into the training piece of this and the training event we want to put on in mid to late September, I wanted to talk very briefly about our data project and where we're at on that. My team's been working very, very diligently on this for the last 30 to 45 days, and I think we're about 90% done. We've built out a very good data system. It's going to be a nice platform for law enforcement agencies to be able to log into securely and be able to obtain some law enforcement sensitive information that we hope are going to provide some good investigative leads for some of these missing Indigenous persons cases. So right now we're working to run every single missing Indigenous person through our operational databases in order to generate those investigative leads that I was referring to. And we've already seen some very substantive leads that have been generated off of that. I can't really get into the specifics of that with it being law enforcement sensitive information, but we're really excited about the potential for being able to hopefully be able to bring some closure to these cases. I wanted to highlight that at the beginning of every month we will be reconciling this new data and then generating a new current list of missing Indigenous persons within the state of New Mexico. One caveat here, obviously Navajo Nation is, bleeds over into Arizona and obviously a little Utah as well. So we have ended up having to take all of Navajo Nation as well as part of this data project that we put together. Our plan is to disseminate this list by mid-July to the task force, as well as some other entities and groups as well as state, local, tribal, federal law enforcement agencies. In some ways, we know this number might be a little high because of the Navajo Nation folks that are included, but on the exact opposite other side, we're probably going to see some lower numbers as well. We've seen a number of these type of cases where we're pulling this information from numerous databases, numerous open sources, to try to develop the most complete picture we can for this. And as such, we've already seen some stuff within the system and NCIC where the information is the racial classification is being misclassified within the system. So you have someone that should be in there as American Indian, Alaska Native, and they're classified as white. And so that's where I think this is going to be a big lift for when we push this list out to the task force, is relying on all of you guys to sort of help us out. And what are we missing? Where do we need to go back into the system and be like, no, you're right, they are in the system, but they're classified as white. So we need to be able to go back in and have the original law enforcement agency make a change within the system to be able to have them classified correctly. And Stephanie, I don't know maybe where or how exactly is the best format to be able to send that out to the task force. We're obviously not going to be able to provide some of the investigative lead piece of this, but we'll be able to do a pared down list of name, date of birth, and some general identifiers, and provide that to the community.
Thank you for that question, Ryan. And I think, I think that's a good question. I guess my first thought was, how do you envision our task force using that? Like can we disperse that to the public, or is it really just for our awareness internally? Are there any concerns on your end that we need to be aware of in terms of distribution?
Yeah, no concerns whatsoever. The list that we provide to you will likely go, and probably publish this to the media as well. Allow that wider dissemination in order to try to get some information back as well. I'm going to go ahead and put in the chat box, actually. We developed an email inbox just dedicated to this particular issue. So if anyone's got any questions or anything else that you maybe want to direct towards FBI Albuquerque, that is the email address to direct that to. And we've got a handful of folks that will have access to that and should provide timely responses. That was just something I wanted to throw out on the data piece of this. We're really excited about where this can go, especially with our law enforcement partners. Next, I wanted to turn to the training event specifically. I know initially when we had talked about this 2-day training event, we wanted to do a public-facing side as well as a law enforcement side. I think in light of the Missing in New Mexico event that DPS is going to be putting together in October, with such a short time frame between the two of those, I think it's probably best for us to focus on the law enforcement side, and then we can provide any resources, assets, services to DPS that they would need from us for whatever that public-facing Missing in New Mexico event would be. I mean, we've heard this numerous times with all the outreach and liaison efforts that we've done over the last handful of months. It's all about training, and we need to provide better law enforcement training on this particular issue here. So our plan is to do a 2-day event that's going to talk, at least at this first event anyway, on very basics here about missing missing cases, how to run missing investigations, some of the resources that you can tap into at the federal level, NCIC, entry, stuff like that. We'll obviously talk about our data platform and how all of the law enforcement agencies will be able to have access to that and how to get access to that. And then obviously a big component of this is going to be a cultural sensitivity, humility awareness type training that we would like to put on. That was something that was brought up in numerous discussions that we had. And I think, and then I think it's just a lot of sort of those sort of basic things to be able to walk through this new tool that we're going to be able to have, and some of the resources that our state, local, and tribal law enforcement partners will be able to tap into to help out on these investigations. So we hope to have an exact date established by next week. We're waiting for the last few stragglers for a questionnaire that we sent off a few weeks ago. And so that deadline's on Friday. So we should have that date established. It's looking to be either middle of September or late September. And this is going to be the first of many of these. We want this to be at least an annual thing, if not biannually, that we can kind of put on and allow this training to happen for our law enforcement partners in particular. But hopefully going forward, we can open up a public facing side of this as well. So I think that's all I had. I didn't want to take up too much of my time. And if there were any questions, I wanted to last some time there too. So.
Thank you, Ryan. Any questions from the group? I just wanted to point out that I think the training will be really timely prior to the Missing in New Mexico event, so that law enforcement is coming to our event with this training fresh in mind. And so I think that might be something for us to consider as a task force. What are some training areas of training that we really want to see the FBI focus on, that if it hasn't already been mentioned, to share some of that feedback with Ryan. But any questions or comments?
And I will say this on the data piece of this. I know what we're working on is likely feeds into a lot of what the data subcommittee is trying to accomplish, and what the task force, we're trying to provide as much data as we possibly can to not only our law enforcement partners, but to the task force and the community at large. We want to be able to compile the best picture we can of what the scope of this problem looks like. And then hopefully be able to start directing resources, whether they're law enforcement or community resources, to specific affected communities. And I would say this, the other thing that we're tracking, and obviously the data piece of this, we're looking at this as snapshot in time at the beginning of the month. But we're also going back and looking at all of those records that have come in and out of the system as well for the previous 30 days. So we're not just looking at, okay, we've got X number of folks that are missing right now. We'd like to be able to have an idea of, okay, we had 40 different people that came in and out of NCIC missing persons records within the month of May, and to be able to share that information as well. So.
Thank you, Ryan. We actually have Laris Manuelito would like to make a comment.
Hi, yes, good afternoon. This is Laris Manuelito. I just wanted to, I'm the Navajo Nation liaison and Northwest representative for Congresswoman Ledger Fernandez. I just wanted to convey my deep appreciation for your work, for the task force's work, but for your work, because just sharing in trusted circles and just as part of the recovery process and being able to share, overly without feeling any shame or any guilt, that I am an MMIWR survivor, trafficking survivor. And to see this happen in actuality is a true blessing, not only for me, but for others who were able to make it. That, that there's actually something being done. I didn't come forward for a long time because of the dealing with the issues and then seeing no action being done. But now that there is things being done, I feel the strength and I feel the protection to be able to come forward more positively and thinking and knowing that there's going to be some resolutions coming to a lot of the ones that didn't have voices that now do through you, through the task force, through every walk, every commemoration, and everything that's been done, that they are heard. And I just really want to share that and thank you again. And if you need any help, anything, feel free to reach out to me. And I'm willing to help in any way I can, because I am so appreciative of everything that is happening. I'm deeply honored to be able to hear what you're doing and what the task force is doing. So thank you very much.
Stephanie, I did want to quickly mention, we wouldn't be able to do this without the task force. This is a very special group. I'm just glad that we're able to be a part of it. This is a pilot project here for the FBI. So we're kind of forging our own path on this one, and we do hope to be able to move this to other field offices in other states. So this is just the first step. We're just trying to put that proof of concept in place, and part of that is having a strong relationship with not only the community but this particular task force itself. Like, without me being able to call up Stephanie or a bunch of other folks that are on this call and just ask questions and hear about your stories, your experiences, that's been just immeasurably helpful as we build this out. So thank you.
Laris and Ryan, thank you. Thank you, Laris, for sharing that. I know many of us are touched and reminded every time we hear personal stories about why we're here and the work that we're doing. And we can go through a lot of data and pie charts and talk about logistics, but we're here to support families and to end this crisis. And I just want to thank you for your courage and in reminding us, the purpose of our work. And Ryan, thank you very much for the update. I think it's really promising and exciting that we are spotlighting these cases, and I look forward to seeing that list. And you can actually send that to me, and I will share it with our task force through our distribution list. And so if you're still not getting emails from us, if you didn't get this invite, can you please drop your email in the chat? We're trying to do better. I know we continue to update our list, but if you're not getting the messages, just let us know and we'll be sure to include you. So with that, thank you for that update. And
Can I mention something real quick? I'm sorry. This is Andrea, associate with the Gallup Police Department.
Yes, absolutely.
On this missing persons day, Ryan was talking about other law enforcement entities, as well as you guys are talking about state entities coming to this day. Have you guys I don't know if that's a possibility to send out information to Navajo Nation. And is Navajo Nation on board? Because we're here in Gallup, we're surrounded by Navajo Nation, and we get a lot of, because we get a lot of people from the reservation coming into our police department to report people missing from Navajo Nation. Now, I don't know if Denise has any education on this because she came from the Navajo Nation before. She's where she's at now. But we're still taking reports for missing people, and we're forwarding into the jurisdictions that we need to forward them to so that they can look at it. But from there on, we don't know where it's going. So we're doing our part because that's what we're asked to do from the clearinghouse. And so once we give it to the Navajo Nation, I don't know what happens to it, to tell you the truth. They're talking about integrating in NCIC, but Navajo Nation, or not Navajo Nation, let me just give you an example. Last week, a lady reached out to me who's a mother of a teenager who's gone missing. And she says that she made a report with Navajo Nation, but nobody's doing anything. And they made a report with us, but we had to explain to her because she went missing from Navajo Nation, we have to refer it back to Navajo Nation. And, but I assisted her the best way I could. I reached out to the jurisdiction that the girl was missing from. I talked to the sergeant out there. They sent me information. We sent officers to a possible location that she was supposedly be at, but she wasn't there. And then I had to contact the mother again, let her know. She was very frustrated about how things are being handled. And I explained to her, I said, ma'am, I can only work within our city jurisdiction. We can't go into Navajo Nation because we're not cross commissioned, and we just have to forward over to another jurisdiction. So my thing about it is that when we have this missing person day, is Navajo Nation going to be there? And because they're a sovereign nation, they get to choose what and how they're going to run their organization per se. Because we follow the clearinghouse guidelines because they're sovereign, they may or may not follow the clearinghouse guidelines for New Mexico, Arizona, Colorado, Utah. So that's where I'm coming from. I don't know. And I've been to a meeting with Navajo Nation before on this issue of missing people. And I talked with FBI, or what FBI explaining it's not one of the laws that are one of the crimes that they handle, missing persons. So they refer it back to Navajo Nation. And again, I don't know where it goes from there. So, I mean, just the issue that you guys might want to consider. But I truly believe that Navajo Nation has to get involved. They have to be there at this missing person day because there's a lot of people that are going to come from the reservations if it gets put out into the radio, newspapers, whatever else when this day is going to happen. And they may come in big numbers or they may come in small numbers. I don't know. So we need that preparation because state police, FBI, and out of the AG's office, are they going to be able to handle those cases? Thank you.
Yeah, no, I agree. Navajo Nation will be invited. I mean, we will be making a strong push to have them there. They're a big part of this, and they need to be there. So that's something that we'll push very hard on over the next couple months to have them there at this training. Thank you for that insight.
Sorry about that, Ryan. Didn't mean to cut you off. I was just going to say, in terms of the Missing New Mexico Day event, I think we need to strategize how we'll include our tribal law enforcement. And, you know, I think we also need to utilize the weight of this task force and the representatives that we have on the task force to help us strategize what that could look like. And so I think it's a really valid point. And I know Regina is probably taking a note of that and will be something that we address collectively, you know, after the group has a chance to meet. So thank you for that, Andrea. Really good feedback. I know we're now running a little bit behind. I wanted to turn it over to Dawn Begay to provide an update on the May 5th events and some of the work that the city of Albuquerque did. I just want to say it was really awesome to see our state response plan being utilized by the city and APD a week after it was published, or actually, I don't even know if it was about a week after. So Dawn or Gerard, do you want to provide an update?
Yeah, I'll get started real quick. Thank you, everyone. My name is Dawn Begay. I'm with the City of Albuquerque Office of Native American Affairs. One of the things we have is we have our Native American Community Ambassador work group, and it's a small work group that really focuses on barriers and challenges our unsheltered relatives and women, Native women experiencing extreme violence face in accessing services and resources. And so on our group, we really have some of our commission members, our city's Commission on American and Alaska Native Affairs. We have Kim Benali and Kyle Tapaha, as well as Erin Nieto, who's an outreach specialist with the mayor's office, Lieutenant Bartlett, who's part of APD, Michelle Curtis from the coalition. And so we have some volunteers, Nancy Arnaudeville, I believe that's how you say your name. Sorry, Nancy, if I mispronounced your name. But last year, APD did start organizing APD tribal chiefs of police, law enforcement, and public safety meetings. And on the April 28th meeting, it was centered around the chiefs of police, officers, emergency responders, and other direct service providers discussing barriers and challenges they experience in providing law enforcement services. And a couple of themes emerged. It was some of the main barriers and challenges: communication, trainings, jurisdiction, funding or lack of resources, and cultural competency. And so on May 16th, the city hosted a tribal and metropolitan law enforcement summit with a focus on developing strategies and a collaborative response aimed at eliminating jurisdictional barriers in investigating and prosecuting MMIWR cases. And so we took the themes from the April's meeting, and we had all of the attendees vote on what was the priority area they wanted to focus on. And communication received an overwhelming response. And so what we were able to do was to use the state MMIW response plan and see if we could pull out some of the key communication recommendations and how to change those recommendations into action items. And some of the outcomes that emerged is the collective really wanted to encourage each municipality, county, state, and federal law enforcement agency in New Mexico to designate a MMIW, MMIWR representative. And also second outcome was to really focus on developing or adopting a statewide community education campaign that standardizes how to report missing persons cases so that the information that we're sending out to community members, whether it's from the city, from the state, federal, or tribal, it all is the same and it's all aligned. And so we're not sharing different information about what signs to look for or when to report or what the reporting process looks like. So those are some of the pieces that we had, and this is when we really wanted to take the opportunity to partner with the task force and the FBI to start focusing on those trainings that are coming up next month. And so some of the continued city commitments will be APD will continue to host the tribal chiefs of police and public safety meetings. I believe the next meeting is tentatively scheduled to take place in August. APD does have they did designate a MMIW, MMIWR liaison. And we are working on how to develop a citywide multimedia campaign where we can either look at advertising notifications for missing persons or to do any other MMIWR campaigns. So that is in the process. And lastly is to see if we can work with our Gateway Center, which is the new emergency sheltering services that will be in operation, we're hoping by next year, but to have a space set aside for governments or non-government organizations to provide resources and services for families who are searching for their relatives. So that is some of the things that we're working on across multiple departments, and I will open it up either to Lieutenant Bartlett or any of our other members if they want to add any of the details or additional information. Thank you. I think Lieutenant Bartlett was on here, but I think he had to leave. But we have the contact for the MMI, APD, MMIR representative. I'll send it to you, Stephanie, so you can share with the group because I don't have it on hand with me right now.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Dawn. Are there any questions for Dawn regarding some of the city's initiatives? I know it, I hear some overlap with some of the work we're doing. And so, maybe, maybe as we talk within the subcommittees, there might be some ideas to support the city with the campaigns that they're working on and with the directory that they're working on for New Mexico. Any follow-up questions? All right. Well, thank you, Dawn. I really appreciate your time this afternoon. I apologize we're a little bit behind schedule, but thank you for being here and for all the work that you're doing. Denise asked for the point of contact for APD, and that Dawn will get that to us, and I will send that out as a follow-up from today's meeting. All right, thanks, Dawn. And then finally, I don't know if we have anyone from the New Mexico Office of Attorney General to provide any updates. Delilah, are you able to provide any updates? And if not, we can always save that for our next meeting.
I believe there were people here, at least initially, from the, and I'm not seeing any of them on the list right now.
Hey, Delilah, this is Special Agent in Charge
Clarence.
Gibson. I'm here,
There he
yeah.
is. Okay, thank you, Clarence. I'll let you go ahead and provide the update.
You got it, ma'am. Thank you. And thank you, Stephanie, everyone on the task force. I'd like to just make this as quick and brief as possible with Regina and all the work that she's done up with DPS and Ryan with the fantastic work he's putting in. They're getting a lot of information put forward. What we have done here is we've established one of our positions. We've assigned one of our special agents, and it'll be Dennis Park. He has been assigned as one of the specialists for one of the positions that we are for sure going to fill. In with that, we've also added a couple of our special agents to assist. We've been working very close with Albuquerque Police, and with the trio that we have working now, they've made a lot of successful outreach to several of the tribes in cases and cold cases that we're looking at so far. At this point, we don't have any updates that we can give due to the sensitivity in the law enforcement, but this group has made contacts with BIA, with several tribes, and with other agencies. And the liaison work that they're doing is amazing. So overall, with what Regina has done, Ryan, and our small portion, we're moving forward, and it seems like something that's really gaining momentum. We're getting called almost every day from a new team member or teammate. So it seems to be a very positive influence that we're having.
Thank you, Clarence, for that. And one question that folks might be asking, if they have cases, who do they contact, and what are some of the parameters or limitations with the Attorney General's office, if any?
So right now with the team members that we're working with the tribes and various tribes, we have an electronic case submission system that's on the Office of the Attorney General website. And the best thing to do if they have a missing person or any questions that deal with any type of unsolved murder, they can go ahead and file a complaint. And we do have a portion of our database set up that's dealing with just the indigenous population. So they can go ahead and make a complaint to our ECS system. Most of those that come in, we have a review, but every one of the complaints that comes into our office, I get via email notification so we can scan them frequently.
Great, thank you for that. Any questions for Clarence? All right, well, thank you, Clarence. We really appreciate the update from the Office of Attorney General. And as always, if there is any questions from the task force or any support that's needed, please let us know. Right now, I know we're running close to time, but I did want to provide our community organizations a chance to provide updates. Moving forward, we'll try to have this earlier in the meeting. I apologize for making people rush at the end. But are there any updates from the community about events or just anything else that you want to share at this time?
Stephanie, this is Delegate Crotty.
Thank you, Delegate Crotty. Go ahead.
Sure, thank you. So next month, Missing and Murdered and Their Relatives, we're going to be hosting a forum for our Utah relatives in blending. And so we want to support those communities and families with what we've been able to do in our task force here in New Mexico. The other announcement is I have been appointed to sit on the Not Invisible Act Commission and from the Department of Interior, and they've released their framing paper questions. And so I'll submit that to your office and hopefully it could be shared with the task force because there's specific questions that we can provide our input in what is going then to be the federal response when it comes to our missing and murdered relatives. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Crotty, and congratulations on your appointment. All right, I'll turn it over to, oh, and one more thing, Delegate Crotty, if you want to send me the information for that event, I can share that out as well as the framing paper. Christina?
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, everyone. I just wanted to announce that First Nations human trafficking programs, both East and CARES, will be having a World Day Against Trafficking in-person stay event. This is going to occur on July 30th at Netherwood Park here in Albuquerque. It's going to be from 8 to 12. There will be free t-shirts to the first 100 people who attend the event, and it's completely free. We will have guest speakers, some entertainment, and community resources. And when it comes to the community resources, we're very open to any entity who's wanting to table at the event. We're more than open. Just send an email and we can definitely talk more about our event. And Stephanie, I can pass this along to you if it could be shared with the task force as well. But if you have any other questions, just feel free to reach out. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina, for hosting such an important event and for inviting us to participate. I think the department would be interested. So if you can pass that information along, we'll make sure it gets out to the group. Any other updates?
Hi, Stephanie. This is Dinah Lee with BIA. Hello, everyone. I was just calling to let you know there is an event that's going to be happening with the 8 Northern Indian Pueblo. They're having a public safety summit next week, the 28th and 29th. It's pretty much free booth space, and everyone's invited. There is already agenda, but also I think this is a good place for networking for everybody. But also just to kind of, I think their topic more is about domestic violence, but I think it goes hand in hand when it comes to missing women and murdered women in that event. So I can go ahead and forward that to you as well. And then the same thing with, like I said, with BIA too, when we do look in investigations, we always get referrals. So I'll send you our link too as well. When someone's reported missing or a cold case homicide, it goes through a process for agents to go out in the field and to follow up and look into it. So I'll provide that information as well.
Thank you for that, Dinah. Appreciate that. And yeah, you'll be sending out the information. I was wondering about the location for that event.
Oh yes, it's going to be at the Okeowinge Conference Center. Casino Conference Center. It's from 8 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. And I will forward also that link for registration.
Okay, great. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. Anything else, folks?
Hi, this is Misky. I just wanted to share something really quick. As we're talking right now, we do have Seraphine Warren, her aunt. Ella Maybe Gay has been missing for quite some time, and she's doing a prayer walk and fundraising for all MMIWR families. She started on June 15th, and I believe right now she is right by Continental Divide. She is walking on I-40 on the side. So if you do see her, just, I suggest just go and visit her page. It's called Trailing Ella May, and she has that on Facebook, and just keep up with her whereabouts. She's headed to Washington, D.C. to advocate for her aunt and all of our MMIWR families. Thank you.
Hi, this is Darlene. Just to piggyback off Muskie, we're doing a press release for Seraphine Warren. She'll be coming through Albuquerque on Saturday morning, and then we will be having a press release at our office at noon on Saturday. So if anybody would like to meet with her, or if there's any organizations that would like to speak with her.
Thank you, Mesky and Darlene, for that. Mesky, anything else to add?
No, that's it. Thank you, Darlene.
Darlene, what time is the press event at your office?
It should be at noon. We're going to be sending the press releases out tomorrow. We're just trying to figure out what time she'll be coming through Albuquerque. She did have a small injury that has put her back a little bit. So your office will get a copy of that press release as well. And if you could send it out.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us. Anything else from the group? Any other announcements? All right. All right. I just have one final announcement for the group. And then I will be asking for a volunteer for our closing prayer. But I just wanted to let everyone know that it is the end of a fiscal year for the department, and we've all been blessed by having Jessica Gidigakun-Smith supporting us as a consultant. She has had a lot of work, where she lives in her home state, and she won't be continuing with us as a consultant moving into the next fiscal year. But of course, we'll continue to invite her to our meetings, and we'll always include her in our work. She isn't here today, unfortunately, but I did just want to send our appreciation to Jessica for all of the support that she's offered us and guidance, and just so much wisdom and love. So just wanted to say that for Jessica. Hopefully she's listening out there on Facebook. But you're always invited, Jessica, and we really appreciate everything that you've contributed to our work. So with that, are there any volunteers who would like to close us off with a closing prayer? Lily, please, that would be wonderful. I really appreciate you.
Holy One, we thank you for this time together, for the generous people who come with open hearts, hearts that have experienced or borne witness to suffering, but are triumphant and resilient nonetheless. Thank you for all of the ways that your Spirit works within and for us and for the good, and with an arc toward justice. Protect and guide each person as we walk through the rest of our day and as we walk through the world every day. Give us strength and discernment to build strong and healthy relationships and to lean into one another and to lean into spirit as we go about this work. We thank you and praise you for the love and light you bring to each of our lives. Amen.
That was beautiful. Thank you, Lily. Thank you so much, everyone. We'll see you all soon, and be well out there, be safe, and keep LMA, keep Seraphine and LMA in your prayers, and we'll see you all again soon.